Releasing Trauma is sponsored by the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. The Global Association for Trauma Recovery is a social impact organization serving as a resource for survivors and their families, dedicated to facilitating change by spreading trauma-related awareness and thus creating a more trauma-informed world. Learn more at gaftr.org. Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Peter Paul Parker, and we're going to be talking about how to overcome childhood trauma. So Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. Lovely to be here.
I'm excited to have you, and even more excited because of your accent.
yes. Lovely English accent.
I love the English accent. I really do. Well, yeah. Peter, I'd like to have everybody start out the show by telling us, a little bit about you, about your story.
My story, I started off, it was like an idyllic start to life. I was born into a family of 6 brothers. I had a mother and a father. We had a nanny and a nanny's a child with us as well. So it was beautiful. We had a swimming pool in the back garden. Everything was really happy. My mother was kind of like my best friend. And I was really close to her. And I used to look at the world, because I was very sensitive, and look at the world and think, why are all these people being so horrible to each other? And I didn't really get it at first. And then I see why that kind of thing happens. But then what it all came crashing to a halt when I was 10 years of age, when my father became disabled down his left side. And my mother had to look after the family and him as well. And that caused a great and enormous amount of stress. And so that stress became a gallbladder problem, which became gallstones, where she went into hospital and had an operation and had them all removed apart from a couple of them. They went cancerous, and she died when I was 11. So I was gone from this idyllic place in a matter of about a year to this place of horrendous position of being sent off to boarding school, where there was lots of pedophiles happening there. Luckily, they didn't touch me, but it was happening all around me with all the kids. And I was writing letters home to my father saying, please take me away from this place because these people aren't really treating me very well. And he didn't believe me. I thought I was exaggerating through grief and all this. That lasted for many years. I was at boarding school, and then I eventually left school at 18. And then my father died at 19, and I was almost homeless. But I was in a daze. I was in a real sort of haze, and I didn't really know what to do. So I found a job printing, and then I moved on to sales because of my education. I went to a very, very good school. Well, they say it's a good school, but it was mainly conditioning that I went through. And so I went into this sales job, and again, I walked into like a bunch of sharks all feeding from you. And because I was in such a daze because of my childhood, I just thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm really not doing this. So I walked out of it. I don't know where I got the courage from, but I just walked out of it. I put my keys through the estate agent's windows. You call it a real estate, I think, in America. And I walked away from my mortgage and became a professional musician. And it started off really hard because I had to really work hard to get the gigs, but I became very, very proficient at it. And what it was, I realized now, it was like a massive meditation for me, because I was playing with some really top musicians, and we used to improvise on the music that we had playing live. And watching that moment unfold piece by piece was incredible, because it was so absorbing. And I realized now that it was taking away from the days that I was in, and I felt like I was really alive for the first time in many years, because I've been hiding all this trauma through heavy drinking, because it was the thing to do back in the day. And it was like I ended up being a bit of a party animal, I suppose, and going into the rock field, that kind of fed that a little bit. But it was the music that I was more interested in. So I was like a workaholic with music. I was spending time in the mornings. I was recording and then playing, rehearsing in the afternoons, gigging or touring in the evenings. And it was getting me away from all of this traumatic feeling that I had. And then the music business dried up because of the introduction to electronic music. I was a live musician, and it kind of dried up. There was no gigs left, so I had to find something else to do. So I started recording, and I recorded 2 albums, one called Stepping Up, one called Anna Harter. And as soon as Anna Harter was released, which was released on a record label, I found it all over the internet being downloaded for free. So I thought, oh, this is the end of my career. And at that point, I could have given up again. There's many times in my life when I've looked at my life and, oh God, why am I doing this? It just felt so hard. And then at that point, I found we went to a mind, body, spirit show with my wife, and we're kind of interested in the esoteric world. We found this Curlian photography where they photograph the auras. And my wife's was this beautiful golden yellow colors, and mine was these moody blue esoteric sort of colors. And she wanted one like mine. So we walked around to this corner. It was called Dharma Yoga at the time. And I started talking to one of the masters, and I was saying, I'm getting more and more angry. I'm getting more stressed. I'm feeling like I'm, imploding almost, because it was all catching up on me. The music had dried up, and I had no other release to get rid of this stuff inside of me. And she listened patiently to me going on with my diatribe for about 20 minutes while my wife was having a photograph taken. And she said, you should come and do the training. And I did. And I'd done martial arts before. So I wasn't, so a lot of men don't like doing group classes, but I didn't mind it because I'd done martial arts before. And I found almost straight away my stress and anxiety started to fade through the Ki Gong practice that I was doing. And then the trauma, it's like I'm peeling an onion. I realized, oh my goodness me, I've been holding this all my life and didn't realize I was getting rid of it. And that's what I found was the really a real defining moment in my life when it comes to trauma, was when we went over to Korea, and we were in the British Ki Gong team, and we went into this meditation cave. And I thought I went in there quite arrogantly, I must say, thinking, oh, I've spoken about all my problems all my life. I'm sure I'm over it. And then I went into this, you never are, you never over it. And it was like a time capsule, like going through all the times, like when my father became disabled, my mother died. And it was quite refreshing, because I thought, oh yeah, I'm kind of accepting that now. I'm kind of accepting that. And then it came to the point when my father actually did die, and my 2 eldest brothers, who were half brothers, they actually looked after the estate, and they set themselves up with 2 houses and courses for themselves as well, to get themselves new careers, and left the 4 youngest boys, I was the second youngest, with nothing. And I'd been holding that all this time, because I was in such a daze. I was holding on to that anger, and I just went, wow, look at that. I'm so angry about that. And I forgave them. I just forgave them there and then. I thought they must have been in such a state to actually do that to their own brothers, to actually set themselves up. And as soon as I forgave them and walked out that cave, I walked up to my master at the time, my mentor, and she said to me, what happened to you in that cave? I said, well, I found this real anger inside of me. And she said, wow. And I said, I just released it. I forgave them and I released it. She said, you have? He said, I look 10 years younger, she said to me. And so I had all that in my face. It was all stuck in my facial muscles. And it was that point I realized we hold on to all this stuff that we don't need to hold on to, and we need to get rid of it somehow. Yep. And that's why I'm really quite happy to share my story because I'm starting to do it. I'm not sure whether we ever get rid of it completely, but I'm starting to do it, and I feel so much lighter and better about it. And talking about it is almost like talking about it from a different life, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you do.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's like a different life. And feeling that releasing is almost brings you to tears, because now I get moments of not happiness. Happiness is the wrong word. Happiness is like a quick fix for things. You can get happy because you get a raise from your job or whatever. But real joy, real moments of joy because of what I do now, rather than that heavy, dull feeling of numbness, and you can't really interact with anything properly because it just feels dull and numb. And I've cleansed myself from that really horrible feeling of actually feeling alive now and looking at people and saying and seeing them in front of me. How can I help you? How can I help you? I really changed my perspective. I suppose that's why I got into music, because it was like, how can I entertain you? And that's what my personality was at that point. I like to be the people pleaser. And I realized that was me just giving my energy away because I wanted people to accept me. And then I've turned that around, where I use that personality to be like a successful Ki Gong instructor, where I use my personality to get people to really warm to me and feel comfortable around me, so that they can actually start to release what they've got inside of them. It's a fascinating subject, and something I'm never going to stop researching, is how you get rid of this trauma inside of you. But that's my story in a quick sort of long way, as it were.
You're right. We hold the trauma within ourselves. And we hold it in, every cell of our bodies. And so I can imagine when you came out of that cave and you had released such a huge trauma that you were holding on to, that it did change the way you look to people. I can definitely believe that.
Yeah. Well, it's been 20, I've been holding on to it for 20 years. 20 years, and that's a long time. The death of my mother and father, I did hold on to them, and I had a really strange experience in my bedsit. Both of them actually it felt like they came back to me, their energy came back to me and said, just let me go, I'm okay, let me go, you sort yourself out. And they were like moments of peace for me. It was like a really weird experience, when you feel like you sense something in a room, or somebody's in a room or something like that. It was like that. Like my mother and father both came back for me because they realized I was in such a state, and that helped me a big amount, because I thought, okay, they're gone, they passed on, and so I've got to get on with this. So that's when I really got laser-like focus for music, and I just said, I've got to do this. This is something I've really got to do. And that's one thing all the traumatic experiences gave me, is I could have given up and got depressed, which is everybody thought I was, because I didn't like to engage in like the trivial rubbish that a lot of people were engaging at the time, like my brothers and things like that, the petty arguments and stupid quarrels over nothing. I didn't get involved with that. And people said, oh, you must be depressed. And I said, I'm not really depressed. I'm sort of trying to focus on where I can put my energy, because it's difficult when you're suffering like that, I think. And it was music that I really could pinpoint on with my laser-like attention to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it well. And that's when I spent so much time sitting over my bass guitar, just playing and playing and playing. And that I was determined never to lose an audition through my ability to play. It would be through my personality. And that was difficult as well, because it was very fiery personality, because of the protection system I built around myself because of all of this stuff that happened to me. And I realize now it's allowing that protection system to drop, and trust in yourself that you can handle yourself in any situation that comes up without having that protection system that lashes out. I don't know if you've had that feeling as well, that thought, but that's where I was at. It was like when someone was coming at me some of my close friends used to say you've got this brick wall around you, and I've dropped that now. I've dropped that whole wall, that whole system, and goodness me, do I feel so much better for it. It's
that wall is heavy, isn't it?
It's tiring to carry it around with you,
and
you think, oh goodness me, thank goodness for that. It's gone now, but it was there for many, many years, and I wouldn't let anyone come past it, and now I do, and it's okay. It's all okay. So, yeah, it's a very tough subject, but it's something I say keep going with it, because it's you know, the bark flower remedies, Dr. Bark. He calls it unpeeling the onion, i.e. getting rid of all of this stuff away from you, and I really agree with that. In the Tao philosophy I teach with my Ki Gong, we call it polishing the diamonds. You've got a diamond inside of you, and what happens with all of this stuff that gets attacked you, it muddies it up, it makes it not shiny and not clean and not clear, and we just get it dirty and all muddy, and that's what the practice that I teach, Ki Gong, is called polishing the diamond, or is unpeeling the onion from Dr. Bark, or even Islam calls it polishing the mirror, and the Christians call it the Christos inside of you, the Christ spark. It's all about you actually shining as a human being, rather than being weighed down by this heaviness and this trauma. And it's difficult when you first look at it and you go, oh no, I'm going to be stuck with this for life. And you're not. You really can push yourself through it, but you have to do the work. I feel you have to do the work. No one comes along and sprinkles some magic dust. There's guides, people will guide you in the right direction, but you have to do the work yourself as well to really help yourself get over these situations.
Well, I want the magic dust. Does it glitter?
I do as well, but
I completely agree. You have to do the work, and that's the part that I think really turns people off, because it's not easy going through your traumas and releasing them and letting them go, and forgiving yourself and forgiving others. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of heart-wrenching work.
Yeah,
but it's so worth it.
Definitely. And going into I've not done it in such a deep way, but I get the gist of everything very quickly. And it's like Carl Jung, really, when I looked into him a little bit, and I realized about energies and how we attach ourselves to energies, and actually how the deities of the Vedic texts are energies rather than demigods, as it were. They're just energies, and we attach ourselves to energies. And one of our energies is our persona, or our ego. And our ego doesn't like to be pushed out of its comfort zone. So if you're stuck in that little tortoise shell protecting yourself, and you want to come out of it, it's very difficult to do that unless you've got that courage to say, I want to do this, that drive inside of you. And it's at that point that you can make the change, because you think, I'm going to do this. I'm going to, whatever happens, I'm going to do this. And you push yourself out of your tortoise shell and you make the change. You give yourself that push to get forward with yourself. And that is really liberating when you do that. And then you see mistakes as just, well, that was one way of not doing it, rather than, I used to take it so personally when I made a mistake on stage when I first started as a musician. Mm-hmm. I used to sink and think, oh, where can I hide? Where can I hide? Right. And then later on in my career, if I'd made a mistake, I'd wait for that part of the song to come around again, and I'll make the same mistake. I was that confident about it. I didn't worry about it anymore. And now I'm doing the same with life. I make a mistake. I think, okay, I made a mistake there. What did I learn from that? How can I grow? Where can I go from that place? And that's a different aspect of not being attached to your ego. It doesn't matter what other people think, is what I think of myself, and how I project myself into the world is the most important thing to me. And of course, I want to be the best human being that I possibly can. And what I've been trained with, which I like about the Korean Tao philosophy, they call it Hong-ik. So what's good for me is good for you also. So we share a common feeling that okay, you express yourself in whatever way you want, and that's good for you. And as long as it's good for me, i.e., you don't attack or hurt or harm me or anything like that with your actions or words, everything's good. It's all fine. And we find more acceptance with each other in that respect because we've got more respect for each other. And
Yeah.
I found that when I was going through these changes of trauma, I would get very angry with the world and very angry. How can these people think like that? And all this kind of business. And the anger was awful. And even my wife nearly left me because of it. I was getting so angry about this and that and the other. And then politics came into my world when I got out of the music business. Because when I was in music, you're kind of living in a bubble. You're not living in the real world. It's like a vocation. You don't really know what's going on in the news, or you don't really know what's going on with politics or world affairs. And then I'd studied politics at school, A-level standard, which is up to 18 years of age. I'm not sure whether that's in America. And I knew about politics, and even at that age, back in the early 80s, I think it was, and when I said to my teachers, I don't agree with this political system and how it works and how you get pressures and interference from big corporations. And that was back in the 80s, I saw that. And then I came out of my music business and I saw the influence now that has on the world. And I was angry. I got really angry, and I've managed to get rid of all of that because I'm thinking I can create whatever I want to in my life. I don't have to worry about what's happening over there or what's happening over there. And that was another big learning sort of path for me, because I realized I've got everything I've ever done. I've had to do it for myself. And I've had helping hands. Yeah, people have come along and said, okay, well, you can have this. If it's going to take you to there, have this. And I've been very blessed with people coming along and saying, okay, here you go, have some of that. And then it's helped me to move forward. But I've always had to make that happen. There's never, no one's ever come along, as I say, with the magic dust and said, here you go, have this for nothing. And I mean, there's times when I think, I could do with taking my foot off the gas and going, oh, give me some magic dust now. But it's up to you really to focus on what you want. And trauma will make you feel like you want to hold a pity party every 5 minutes. And I've met people, and I suppose I've done it myself in the past, where you introduce yourself as, hi, I'm Peter, I'm an orphan. My parents died when I was very young, and you're literally offering yourself up as like a victim to what's happened to you, rather than actually being a master or in control of it.
Right.
And that's really where I have been in the past, to try and get attention for myself. And I realized, actually, what kind of attention do you want? If you want to get attention, which is why I feel a lot of people who are traumatized, they want to get into the acting or the music business because they want to be loved, which is what we all want, basically. And you got to get the right kind of love. So I believe in the you attract what you are, the energy that you are. So if you're putting out good energy, you get good energy back. And I've learned that through my practice of actually working on your energy body and getting that correct. And you get the love you get back is far better than any love that I got when I was in the music business and on television and getting recognized in supermarkets and things like that. It's really difficult to have conversations when someone says, oh, I saw you on TV yesterday. Whereas now when I meet people, even if they've seen me on YouTube or whatever with my Ki Gong classes, they say, well, yeah, I've been following you on YouTube. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much. And that's a different conversation for some reason. It's more like, oh, really? What have you been getting out of it? You can get into a conversation about them rather than talking about myself. Right. And that's a really big change for me. And I love it. I love it now. It's a different kind of fame, as opposed to saying, oh, I want to be famous, because I think that's a really... why do you want to be famous? What's the big thing about that? It's good to be known by people, yes, and I've done that in my local area. I've set up a charity to help the elderly with the Ki Gong now, and I've gone out and done lots of sort of teachings in schools and things like that. So people know me in the area. I met the mayor of my area recently, and she wants me to do some more work for some of her charities she's got set up. and things like that. So I'm getting well known, but it's a different kind of fame. It's a nice kind of fame in that respect, because it's what I am, and what I do now is try to help people find their best version of themselves, and that's what I think has really turned me around, because I realized if I had the odd guide that came into my life that said, don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this. And I thought that, well, I know that was the real love that I was looking for, is rather than people coming up and saying, oh, you're amazing, you're such a brilliant musician, or you're this, you're that. They go, no, don't do that, do this. This will really improve you. And I thought, yeah, I get that. At first, you think, why are they telling me what to do? Because your natural reaction is go, no, I'm still sitting here in my little tortoise shell, in my comfort zone with my ego, and saying, no, I'm right. And then when you realize, well, actually, they got a point, and then you do what they do what they say. Those guides are really important, and they come up every now and again. And if you're watching for them and you're sensitive towards them, it really does help you bump up in a quick way, rather than being stuck with where you're stuck at. And I think it's really important to be observant and open with this, but also discerning when you're trying to come out of your problems, being very discerning of who you trust and who you actually put your faith in and your energies towards, because that's another thing, is we tend to give our energies away too easily to the wrong types of people, especially when we're feeling maybe helpless or really just beaten up by life. You're reaching out to everybody, and I do deal with people like that on my coaching, where I'm helping people where they're just almost giving up, almost suicidal, and you think, hang on a minute, you just guide them towards what they want to do and where they want to go with their lives, and it works. It takes time, but it's weird. I always thought of this like this. I've been thinking about this. Maybe you've got something to say about this, but it's like in the animal kingdom, when you think about a gazelle being chased by a lion, and maybe the baby gazelle gets killed, but the mother runs off, and then how quickly the mother goes back to grazing grass and things like that, and just going back to the normal life. And when it happens to human beings, it gets stuck. It's really interesting to think that, why does this get stuck in us and not in other? Well, some other species do suffer trauma. I know the cats do, because they're more coming into our world, but the ones more in the natural world are quicker at coming out of their sympathetic nervous state, going back into the parasympathetic nervous state, whereas we tend to get stuck in our sympathetic nervous state. And I think it's a fascinating subject. And I've just been watching a documentary, I think his name Ian McGilchrist, on the brain. He's like an English professor, and he's talking about the left brain and the right brain. I know there's a lot of pop culture about that going on, but he says that we do live in a very left brain world at the moment. This is very organized and safe, as it were, but it's pushing forward with materialism and how to get more comfortable, more money, more this and more that. Whereas the right side of the brain, which is more creative and accepting of everything and just wants to be, is being left behind. And I think that, to me, that is another reason I was very angry as a musician, because I said, I just want to create, man, I just want to create, leave me alone. And it was like pushing me into this left brain world, this left side of my brain. And I found it difficult, because I was in that daze, that sort of feeling of like being heavy and having to focus on these like spreadsheets or numbers or anything like that.
Right.
I can't do that. I'm over here doing this. This is good over here, and I can't look at that. And I found that really difficult. I still find it a little bit boring to do some of the stuff, but I don't mind writing and analyzing things. I think it's to do with my brain as well. Being a Virgo, with my star sign being very like analytical and having to use my brain a lot. But I want to come down into my heart more, because it's so much more fun, and it's so much more joyous life, because you get stuck in your brain, you get stuck in the emotions, you get stuck in this trauma. It's no fun. It's no fun. And
No, I agree.
Life is fun. It is fun.
It is. Thank you so much for coming on, Peter, and talking with me and sharing your story. This has been wonderful.
That's okay. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Listeners, we'll have all of Peter's contact information down in the show notes. Just head over to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Peter's show, and all his contact information will be there. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you in the next show.